Buy a pigment from a company for years and years, and then the next time you get it, it's different.
Yes. Well, that's the global market. That is the global market, because when you're buying these pigments, you know, from what I understand, this hasn't really changed. There's not really such a thing as tattoo pigment. It just needs to be non-toxic according to certain US FDA definitions. And when you're ordering a particular color, it just needs to match the non-toxic description and the right hue and chroma. And it can be sourced from a completely different place, made out of a completely different substance from a month ago.
That's right. So when I started, I mixed all of my powders with Listerine. What did you mix yours with?
Oh gosh, it was witch hazel, and sometimes I use vodka for the white. I don't know why this guy Greg Culls got me into using vodka for my white pigment.
Bert used gin.
Yeah.
Maybe break down those large molecules. I don't know.
I think that if you did this same thing with rubbing alcohol, it would have the same effect, but it wouldn't be as cool.
No.
Maybe, I don't know. So Matt, you ended up becoming sort of a personality at tattoo conventions. This is a sort of a result of being able to come out of your shell. But I imagine this kind of happened gradually. I think that this would be something that other people considering this kind of tattooing would be curious to hear. The evolution of from being, you know, inclined to hide yourself to becoming this person who's delighted to walk around in a G-string. That didn't happen overnight.
No, it took a few years and puberty was late, but no, I kind of grew up showing off my body in tattoo magazines. It was, you saw that it developed there. I was in all the magazines for all the years. And you know, basically when you start, I was at 16 years old in Outlaw Biker Tattoo magazine, you know, with the Roy Boy rib tear. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, just doing this all the time with this thing from Roy Boy. Yeah, so everyone knew me at 16 without my shirt in a magazine. So you saw when it started, because that was 1986. And here I am without my shirt in tattoo magazines. So that really peeled the shell and kind of stopped some of the conservative developments that people might have in their personalities between 16 and 18, because they're not shirtless in Outlaw Biker magazine. You know, that'll keep a lot of things from, you know, being humble in public or anything like that about your body. Forget it. It's gone. You know, the Roy Boy experience. You tattooed him, being in his videos. Here I am, 16 years old, in 2 Roy Boy videos. We bad, you know, into the Badlands, and we bad. I mean, here I am at 20 years old, sticking a pencil through my ear, smiling with a big smile and dreadlocks. At, you know, at 19 years old in a Roy Boy video. You know, that kind of eliminated any effect college had on my life. Other than avoiding actually working in the real world. So pretty much, that pretty much nullified any value of actually having a college degree, because here I am in Roy Boy videos, stick a pencil in my ear in all the tattoo magazines every fucking year. So that was my life, and college was a waste, so I didn't have to wash dishes. And, you know, whatever, and it helped pay for the tattoos, a lot of it. And I don't know, there wasn't that much tattoo media back then. So I was in a lot of them. I was young and getting work. It was changing from a lot of the older military or even the homosexual community, Cliff Raven, other stuff with the large scale male work. Here I am, young, straight, goofing off with women and wearing almost no clothes. And I'm in magazines all over doing that kind of stuff. So it's been kind of weird. And now I'm known as a person who shows more skin than anybody else at tattoo conventions. They literally, you know, when they want to hire someone, bring someone to a tattoo show as a thing, 150 shows in 34 countries. I've got each show, I get a flag on my leg of that country in that country, you know, as a traveling mark. But, you know, I've been on the media, I've been supervised in China for wearing a thong in public and taking photos with people. And
so have you run into other people in all these travels who've been in a similar situation where they have something that they need to disguise, or have you ever, or do people just not know that about you because you've done a good enough job of hiding?
Oh, no, they come to me. A lot of them come to me. I have a rare birth defect. So especially in the early years of the internet, when they would Google something called Poland syndrome, I'm missing my major pectoral on my left side, my rib cage is deformed. And a lot of us all have all these other parts of this birth defect. So every time I go to a show, people with this birth defect, because there's so few of them, they meet me because they're like, you took control of this rare birth defect, Poland syndrome. They have all these people all over the world who come up to me. We all have this birth defect. So we're talking in our own foreign language that only people with our birth defects can talk about, because they have the same symptoms. So you either have it or you don't. So it gets really kind of interesting. And they come up to me in every show and go, look, I'm missing my chest too. And then I go, you have this, you have that, you have this, you have that. And, and they're like, wow, nobody knows me like you do. And I just met you. So it gets kind of weird. But they see me in the media taking control of this birth defect with the tattoos and talking about them in the media. I talk about Poland syndrome. I say it in every interview I've done in 34 years. So, yeah, I get a lot of people like that. But also I have kidney disease, and that's been in the media for 10 years. So I get a lot of people with kidney disease. I see a lot of kidney transplant scars, more than people would expect. And a lot of people just go, wow, you have all these tattoos and you have what we have. And again, you're having some control over your body and what's happening to you, being helpless with this deadly illness happening. They're just like, they want to meet me. So it gets kind of interesting. I have multiple issues. I now have spinal neurological stuff going on. So I'm meeting a lot more people in wheelchairs now. So yeah.
Is this something that are you at risk of ending up in a wheelchair yourself because of these things?
Oh, I'm having surgery to prevent me from being a quadriplegic. We are just now starting my Medicare fight in about 14 days. And I have the best surgeon in Oregon, and we're going to rebuild my entire cervical spine. So I already have something bordering on neurological problems all over my body. So I have a little bit going on. It's not that bad right now. It's tolerable, but they have to decompress my spinal cord or it will become permanent and progress. So here I am decaying, but I'm like, at least I have a bodysuit. So that's the positive
We're all
side.
decaying.
Yeah, but what if you had to be quadriplegic and you didn't have a bodysuit? Wouldn't that suck?
It would suck more. Yes.
Yes, you understand. You got your back, you got most of your body covered, guy. Just imagine for a second, go, okay, I got all this cool, great tattooing, fucking great, yeah. I'm proud of it. It's great. And then, oops, you're a quad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know this guy, Brian Cross? Did you ever meet him?
Yes. I met him at, and you were also there at Bahia, San Diego, 1992.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep. And
little Vinny tattooed his back before he was walking around.
Was that before or after he was paralyzed? Because
nobody saw him. Nobody saw him after. So that was before. Nobody saw him after, sadly.
Well, I saw him.
Yeah, he was on lucky. He was on a vent. I mean, it really cuts your travel down being on a ventilator.
Right.
I can't travel right now until my doctor operates and after I heal from that. Hopefully the Medicare won't fight too much on it and they can give me the proper surgery. There's kind of a different kind of thing. Either they can replace the joints or they can put in a titanium hardware. Either way, it's gonna I don't know, I should improve everything going on and stop progressing, but it's brutal. I mean, it's absolutely brutal what's going on. So I mean, I could just, from what I'm going through, I don't think really going to cut things down for anybody it affects. It's not going to affect me because I have the best surgeon going on. So I should be recovered in about 3 or 4 months and then being able to travel again. I'll just have a big scar on my neck from chin to here. But I do have a blessed Thailand monk tattoo right where they're going to operate. Speaking of medical tattoos. So Gideon saw from Amsterdam Convention, he saw a Thai monk in Macau, China, hand tattoo, a good health tattoo right where they're going to operate. So the surgeon is going to see them. They're going to cut right through the tattoo and really have to match the skin up to make this all perfect again.
Yeah, I'm
So,
always
yeah.
impressed when surgeons can do a good job of that. Like, I got
Yeah.
myself in the hand with a circular saw once,
Ah,
and it was a very minimal amount of damage, just 8 stitches, and nothing underneath was damaged. But I ended up asking him to pull and redo some of the stitches because I knew I was going to be looking at this thing for the rest of my life. It's like, no, you could do better than that. Yeah, it did it again. I'll be right back.
So I'll talk a little bit.
That would be great. We were speaking yesterday, and some of the stuff that we had mentioned in terms of your background in medical tattooing and what type of clients do come to you for specific reasons and why. And that was very enlightening to hear.
I cut through a whole swath of people, and I got very lucky in the beginning when all of the doctors wanted me to help do tattooing on their patients. And they got me a NPI, a national provider number. I'm just like, I bill insurance. They got me all of the codes so I could code the procedure I was doing and code the type of cancer that I was working on so that insurance would pay me. I mean, I think that's really unheard of. And the one thing that I learned about working on breast cancer survivors is they just call it tattooing. They don't call it nipple areola or figurative. So that allows me to bill Medicare and bill Regents or any insurance company for a great big phoenix across the chest. It's just by the centimeter or square inch. So that was a kind of a fun revelation. And so these doctors, I grew up with them. They were all starting now. They're my age. And there's a new generation of doctors coming in. And at one point, there were people that were trying to tattoo in the medical offices there, but it really didn't work out. Too many people in and out. And now with this COVID one-on-one thing, that would never work. I've always had a one-on-one relationship with my people. They've always come by appointment. So it really didn't change my practice that way. In fact, I wrote the health code laws back in 1993 because the doctors wanted to know if I could clean it up. We were already working fairly clean, but remember, I started knocking the rust off my needles, my steel needles, with a wire brush when I started. So now we're into stainless steel, and that whole AIDS crisis had come up. And so I put on my little paralegal hat and went down and wrote the legislation that's now in practice today. But I'll tell you, people love that we're regulated now. All the tattooers love it too, because they can say, hey, we're regulated by the health department. But back in 93, I had to have police officers around my house. I had to have security. I had a lot of death threats. Nobody wanted it. They didn't want anybody to be regulating tattooing. They didn't really kind of get it. Probably old biker guys. And, there were an awful lot of people that were working out of their houses, and they just didn't like the idea of being part of the mainstream. For me, it wasn't about being part of the mainstream. It was about being able to work on people like Matt or anybody else. I mean, I'm a pacemaker. I have issues. I need to have things done exactly right. You just never, you can't afford to get a skin infection. Some of the worst scars and health problems I've seen have come from a bad staph infection. Not necessarily by tattooing, just a staph infection. So I think you want to try to keep ahead of it and do it as well as you can. And now, of course, every state is trying to upgrade their regulations so they can stay open because of COVID. You got big and I got little. Oh, now I'm big. So that's where I am. I do custom tattoos. And as you know from the pictures I showed you or sent you, I do all kinds of different things. I work on faces. I've learned how to stipple beard hair in a scar so that, because if you just tint the scar and they don't have a beard there, it doesn't match the rest of their face. I find it ever evolving because surgeries evolve, techniques evolve. And so I find it all it's still very, it entertains me. I learn. It's always important to learn, and I enjoy people. And so that's a good thing. You better be a people person. And I hope to keep working as long as I can.
That's a great thing to be motivated by, of course. Now we can see me.
Yeah, doing your own thing and having your own office. I'm the president of me. And every time I find a need, I try to fill it. When I very first started trying to do medical tattooing, I made my own pigments, and I ran those pigment lines for a while until the tattoo suppliers got onto it. And then when I was working on people that had sensitive skin, grafts and burns, I started developing topical anesthetics. So I have a whole line of those now that are mostly sold to laser doctors. Lasers hit the same layer of skin that a tattoo needle does, the dermis. So it's very difficult to find something that you can apply topically that will deaden that layer. It's the pH that makes it stop right there. Before, laser surgeons just had to shoot a zillion shots into you, which are painful enough. So that was, those are widely used now. That company is called Dermal Source, but its major supply, you'll find all the major tattoo suppliers and piercing people like it, but you'll also find lots and lots of anesthesiologists, laser doctors, you know, people, the need, because the technology has advanced, the need for a very superficial numbing product came around. So I got lucky there.
So yeah, how did that change the initial communication between yourself and your clients that aren't necessarily tattooed, but for? I'll
tell you a really interesting statistic. Of every single solitary breast cancer survivor or burn survivor, not one of them had a tattoo. But for their situation, not one. They would have never found me. So it was all foreign to them. Luckily, their doctors have known me for a very long time. And in the beginning, I had to have the anesthetic compounded at a pharmacy, you know, tetracaine, lidocaine, benzocaine, and it was very expensive for them, and it was a prescription. And so I did some research and found an FDA lab, and I was tattooing a fellow, and putting a big piece on his arm. His name was Michael, and he said, you know, I should have put some topical anesthetic on this. And I said, well, where would you have gotten that? And he said, oh, I work at an FDA lab. And they, like that, you know, somebody comes, talk about predestination. This guy comes, sits in my chair. I've been struggling trying to find somebody. And he said, oh, I can do that for you. And to this day, you know, they've been doing that. So I just think I've been in one of those positions where something comes up and a solution appears.
You know, and that's so massive, not just a solution for one person, but it has a large effect, and I think that's awesome.
I think when you've been in business as long as I have, the biggest problem is trying something new. You know, you see this all the time. You got something that works for you, you don't want to change it. So if there's a tendency not to try a different needle shape, try a different pigment, you know, different techniques. But so I try to force myself to always try something new.
And that type of mentality, have you always had that type of mentality? I know, Matt, I'd love to hear your response to trying something new.
Yeah, I'm a seeker.
A seeker.
Yeah.
Mary saw that starting with my ear tattoos by Dave Lum. I did nobody ever did good ears. So I finally got my ears done by Dave Lum. I had to interview. He turned my ears into flowers. Let me take off my headset.
Let's see this.
Your head's too low, Matt.
So yeah, the only good ears most artists have ever really seen. Bill Loika said those are the only good ears. Dave Lum himself said, I've never seen a good ear tattoo in my entire career. So Dave Lum seen everything, but he never saw ear tattoos that didn't suck, that were interesting, that were cool. And I came to him and said, let's turn my ears into 3D flowers. I have the checkerboard background that'll make it like 3-dimensional pop more. So it'll be like growing out of a geometric background with the ear, with the you know, base pattern there. So the ears come out. So it looks like I got flowers growing out of my head, and it's you know, very three-dimensional. So, and Mary Jane tattooed the earlobes filled in and a little bit of the connection. And I still have some of the more interesting ear tattoos that have ever been done.
I think so too.
I'd say so.
It's very difficult to tattoo ears, again, because you're talking about, there's not much skin there, there's no dermis, and there's a lot of cartilage. So it's hard to pound the pigment and have it find a place to live.
We were both amazed at how Dave Lum did them in one pass, one shot. They're still, it's 2006, so it's 15 years later. They're still just as bright. They're still just as solid. And he went all the way into the rim of the ear canal. So I have like the most internal tattoos inside my body in the world. I modernized tongue tattooing. I tattooed my own eyes. I've done all kinds of really weird stuff. And, but Dave Lum got just on the rim of my ear canal, and I couldn't take any anesthetic because nothing would work with the ear. So I had to sit there and just fucking take it. And 2 weeks apart, he did my entire ear, 3 hours each session, and right in his like garage add-on. And then I took the Greyhound bus back up to Portland to get it, but I had to interview to get these. So that was really innovative. I spent 16 years trying to figure out what would be a good ear tattoo. It was like one of those difficulties.
Why did you choose Dave to do that one?
Because he's Dave Lum. Who else would you go to do something like that? Who else in the world? I have the big phoenix on my neck, of course. That's a Richard Stell. So who else would do that good? He did that when Sailor Moses died in 1997. Mary Jane did a minor bit of touch up around the Adam's apple, but that wears away physically. It's still perfect. He's not even here anymore. You know, rip Richard Stell, but I have an entire collar. I didn't just do one neck tattoo. I got a full collar for my neck in, 1997, right after Moses died, because Moses did giant Phoenix-based leg sleeves on me. So I have a, memorial kind of also topping off the bodysuit with Richard Stell doing a Phoenix collar around my neck. And,
just quick technical note before I forget. Dave Lum, I remember he colored everything with an 8 round. That was his thing. And he was very, very steady and methodical. He was not fast, but he'd just do it once and it would be very, very saturated. It doesn't work for everyone. That was his thing.
Very quiet in a shop. Very quiet. He didn't really have much music going or anything. Just a small
I was tattooed
little
in his
cubicle
shop
there.
and
In Salem?
pretty quiet.
Yeah.
So Mary,
sorry.
I wanted to talk technical a little bit before we run out of time, because we only have a few more minutes before we're going to have to take the audience questions. But
are you going to show any of the before and after pictures that I sent you?
Lauren, why don't you go ahead and start bringing those up, because I wanted to ask you a few technical questions about these things, because I definitely have found, especially tattooing scar tissue, very different. And like you were saying, the pigment, by the time it's done, ejecting the stuff that's not really part of the tattoo, that first year or so, it's all underneath the scar.
One of the things I learned is if you see a thick white scar and you want it to be flesh tone, you have to put practically dark brown in there.
Mm-hmm.
That milky white grows over the top.
Yes.
What you're going to see on the surface is going to be many times lighter. Oh, here's a perfect deal. This guy, that's his stomach. So he's got the stomach, it's very yellow, white scar, and then the natural skin and his hair. So you have to put you can't just blend it like makeup. You have to put a different color very precisely in every different color of skin to make it match.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time. This was a birth defect. I think there is an after picture there. There you go.
Yeah.
You see where you can see the scrubbing marks. I usually use a 3/4 flat shader to try to do that, because that skin and the scars are so tough, they bounce away from an 8 round. And then it's that anytime you're trying to make a brown color, scars they heal blue. So any color that you put in there is going to take on a blue tinge. Doesn't matter. If it's a white scar, it's going to heal blue or cool. And so that was a bit of a learning curve too.
So do you always go a little bit more red ahead of time? Like, do you overcompensate with your color mix?
I overcompensate, but a lot of it depends. Like, I don't think you really see that that is a bright yellow thicker. When you put that redder tone on, it recedes it a little bit, you know, that yellow pops. So it looks, advances in front of the normal skin too. And so really you have the normal skin, the scar, which is hidden now, and the yellow skin. So you see a little bit of everything in my business, and there's not a set answer for any of it. But it usually takes 2 or 3 visits, 8 weeks apart. You can't really tell how the color's going to heal until the scar grows back over the top. You know,
So is the majority of the work you're doing, that is the medical type work that you're doing, concealing grafts and scars, or are there others things that you do as well?
I do a little bit of everything. Grafts, scars, surgeries. Okay, so that is a perfectly flat piece of skin. They tried to build a nipple and it flattened because it was right inside the scar. And they even tried to tattoo it. This is early on. So when you're trying to figure out where to put a nipple areola, it's a perfect triangle from the notch in your neck down. And so that's how you try to figure out how to place them. And so the second slide shows they look 3-dimensional, they're flat.
Yep. You just have to put that shading in the right place. And do you find that the fact that part of this is running over a scar and part of it isn't, do you have to approach the coloring in the scar notably differently from the areas around it, or is that one of those things that you just kind of even it out in the subsequent sessions?
Right where that scar goes through, I took a totally different color to tattoo precisely in that scar, so that in 8 weeks it would heal to the same color.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild, isn't it?
So do you have a guideline for how to mix these different colors when you're going over scars? Is it one of those things that you don't think you ever would have been able to figure out without just doing it many times?
Yes, I learned it the hard way.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, like you're saying, everyone is unique. Everyone's going to heal differently. And of course, a scar is not regular skin either. It's going to behave differently from the rest of that person's skin.
Or if it's on your face, you're going to get tan, and you're going to get.
Yeah.
That whole thing is you have to talk to them about sunscreen. I can only match the skin you walk in the day with, but if you go on vacation, it'll turn that tattooing orange because it'll degrade it, and you'll be tan, and you'll come back in and go, what happened? So there's a little bit of education that goes on, and sometimes people just aren't candidates. You know, there's some pretty good makeup that will cover things too. But there are a couple of slides. I don't know if you've got them, Lauren. One shows a guy where I stippled in beard hair on his face. Another one, a lot of people seem to get cancers right up here on their temple. And that's always a different color. And so I also have done some pretty graphic things across flat chests for women that were regular tattoos. Lauren's got those. That's a guy, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to pull this up. One of the guys that was pretty interesting as I'm scrolling through their stuff here.
Okay. So this was interesting. That was where his port was. And this was the first male breast cancer they had. So they built it like a female nipple. You know, they made this big scar and then it built the nipple and they had that. If they had just let it be flat, it would have been a lot easier for me to tattoo, but they didn't know it.
Yeah.
But it turned out great. But I had to actually get rid of see, this was much easier to do. See this scar here? So this guy had a big pop belly and they just pulled his breasts off, pulled his belly up and cut him 18 inches across. And then I tattooed some nipples on him.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're always developing. I guess it's been a privilege to say that. That's from a slideshow.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great stuff that you'd shared with us. I love hearing kind of the backstories of some of these tragic events that have turned kind of bright in their own way.
So my next question, and this has sort of been on my mind for years, and I've never even known where to ask. So Mary, I think you would be the person. Let's just say that you are either a person who needs this kind of tattooing done. You've got heavy scar, from let's say a burn, and you're looking for an artist who would do well with this. Or let's just say you are an artist that you've done one or two of these and you feel like this is something you do well with and you understand it well, and you want to put word out to the burn advocacy community. Is there a place where these artists and clients could find each other? I guess that's the question.
Emmanuel Hospital in Portland, Oregon has a group called Burn Concern, and it loops in anybody who's been in a burn unit, all the doctors that work in the burn unit. So, and they have monthly meetings. And so if you go and lecture, I just did a lecture to primary care physicians. You know, they have to get continuing ed too, just like I do. So I gave them a lecture on what a primary care physician should know about tattoos.
Okay.
And so that they can, and I gave everybody folders so that they can direct their clients to make wise choices. We're lucky in Portland, there's a lot of really tattooed artists, and Tanya Magdalena and Miss Mickey both do beautiful work, but there's not very many people that are interested in trying to figure out the puzzle of skin tone, you know. And so I think there's a woman named Lorinda Giffen in Vancouver, Washington that does it. We worked together for about 30 years. But most of the people that step their foot in the water, and remember, most tattooers are guys. I had a guy that I trained, and he said that his lawyer told him that he might get in trouble for, inappropriate touching. And I went, they aren't breasts. It's a surgical site, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
You know, you've got all of this weird stuff floating around. But I think everybody would like to be able to try to do it. But I've taught classes and over and the other thing is the clients shouldn't have to pay for it. They should be able to fill insurance, and so that's a whole nother step. You know, you can fill out the paperwork. If you've got cancer and you're getting tattooed, it's free. I get paid.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
That's a whole nother layer. But this was I taught about 150 guys how to bill insurance, walked them through the whole thing, showed them a whole slideshow on it. And the next year they came in and they wanted to show me before and after pictures. And I said, how's the insurance going? And they all just went, not a word. And I said, okay, why aren't you guys billing insurance? And nobody wanted to talk in front of the other guys. So I had them write it on a piece of paper while I went out to get a cup of coffee. And I'm sitting out there and I went, they probably all have felons. They stole a car in high school. You know, maybe that's the deal. You know, I had no idea. But the reason to a man in that room that they couldn't bill insurance, they're all cash businesses. They have ATMs in their shop. They don't pay, you know, they just keep all the money and they don't show an income. So I said, well, this would be a perfect way for you to, you know, you're 25 years old. At some point, you might want to get married and have a house. So you might want to start billing insurance to start establishing an income. This is your perfect introduction. They went, hey, that's right. Yeah, I said, if you wait till you're 30, you're going to be in trouble. You know, they're going to wonder what you've been doing all this time. So yeah, you work in an industry for years and you think you know everything and know them, but you don't.
Yeah, I mean, I know people that are my age who have not paid taxes in 25 years. It's like, whoa, okay. Let's just not talk out loud about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no excuse for that. I think that would just be like walking around with this little black cloud of stress in the back of your mind.
It's waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you buy a house?
You're right. Yeah. You have your parents do it, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Credit card. You can't get a credit card without a bank account, without showing income. But they must have figured it out. But as people get older, they want different things and they straighten up.
Yeah. But that's interesting. The idea that you could get insurance to pay for a tattoo. I've never even considered that.
It's a big deal. They'll pay and they have, you can set, nobody's doing it. You can set your price. I mean, you can.
So you could say, okay, since this is a medical tattoo,
For a 30-minute session,
harder.
you could do it. They're not gonna question it. They don't understand it. But I try to bill insurance always for cancer survivors because they haven't got any money and they can't afford to do this themselves. So sometimes unfortunately in the United States, every insurance company is different. Some of them want to have a deductible. So I hate working on people in January because they may have insurance, but they have a $5,000 deductible. So they're still paying for it,
Right.
So in those cases, I max out, I charge as much as I want so that I can get rid of the deductible form so that eventually, can pay me through their insurance. And every year it changes, but insurance is a whole other job. I know people that have hired somebody just to bill their insurance. If you see 5 people a day and you have to bill their insurance companies, that's a project. Some of them require authorization. You have to get approval for the number of appointments before you even see them. Some don't care.
Right.
Some have to.
Okay. So yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. Like if we want to have an ultrasound done, we have to approve it ahead of time. And I guess I just wouldn't have thought that they would look at that as something legitimate. They say, oh, you want a tattoo and you want us to pay for it. But so how do you word it when you describe this in a form to an insurance company?
I have several 1-sentence letters. They have to be referred by their doctor. I'm referring Guy Atchison to Mary Jane Haake for completion of his, we'll just say breast augmentation with tattooing.
Okay.
Yeah, my procedure code is, her provider code is. It's one.
Okay, so you do have to get a doctor to refer. Okay.
If they have their surgery locally and within 2 years statute of limitations, and the doctors are happy to do that because the one thing doctors really don't ever get to see is the end product. No matter what they're doing or how good a surgeon they are, after the 6-week visit with them, you're gone. And stuff doesn't heal up, and they never get to see tattooing and have it look normal. That takes a couple of years. And so I send them pictures, and so they can meet their portfolios that way.
Yes. Okay. That's all very interesting. That is all very new stuff, and worth noting that a medical tattoo is a legitimate medical procedure. It can be paid for by insurance if your doctor refers you, and there's a 2-year statute of limitations on that.
And if a doctor refers you from a surgery, but I have my own national provider number now, you can apply for it, and then you can bill insurance yourself. So I don't necessarily, only in cases where there's a surgery or breast cancer, those are usually referred, but I don't have to have a doctor's referral. So I write to them though to find out what the code is for whatever they did.
There's a good chance there's going to be some artists who are going to want to know more about this.
Got several 8-hour classes twice.
Okay.
Big auditorium, and there might even be a PowerPoint specific to this. I don't know what I sent Lauren. I sent her a couple that I'd be more than happy to share. But it usually works better if it's in a live format. So maybe when conventions come back and we can do it,
or if there's enough demand, we can always do something Zoom based as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that's all very interesting stuff. And for those out there who are looking to get something like this done, talk to your doctor, see how they feel about that. And it sounds like you have a very legitimate claim to saying, listen, I'm going to have this visible scar. It's going to make me feel weird. I'm not going to want to wear a sleeveless shirt anymore unless I get a tattoo. And I think I know an artist who's, I've seen their name before as being recommended for scar cover-ups. If you authorize this, we can get my insurance to pay for it.
Yeah, for referral for completion of whatever the problem is.
Okay.
Repigmentation of my surgical scar. The doctor.
Yeah, that's completely legitimate. And it's just funny because you know the stigma that tattooing has. So it's always curious to me to see how caught up other industries are, you know, like an archaeologist was telling us about how they discovered a tattooed mummy and their first thought was, oh, I guess they had criminal gangs back then. You know, these other fields are getting caught up.
Got really lucky because the head of the dermatology school here, her name, she just retired, Frances Stores. She was covered with tattoos, and so she really paved the way for me. She really wanted me to be able to do all kinds of work. She was very excited about it, and having that I work on large groups of people. I tattoo the SWAT team. I've been tattooing the SWAT team with the same little black bat with a lightning bolt behind it for 30 years. And they all come in and sit down and get their all the other guys come around. And so I do a lot of big group things like that. And I think that it helps a lot if you've got the backing of some stuff. I had a whole bunch of dermatologists come to my loft to get tattooed because they didn't want to be seen going in the tattoo shop downtown.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
So that stigma's there. So any final things that you would like to say, either to artists wanting to provide these kinds of services or to people seeking them out?
Look me up. I don't have an active Instagram, but you can find me. I have a Wikipedia page, and just contact me by email. My email is mjhaake@dermagraphics, DERMAGRAPHICS.com. So my name, my company.com. Just write me.
You can use the social media pages too. Dermosource International on Instagram or Facebook. We'll get you the messages.
Yes, Dermosource is my anesthetic business, and Matt promotes all of those. So all lead to Rome, which is me.
Yeah, I'll get her all the messages if you want to do social media on all the websites.
And Matt, before we go into chat room questions, any final things that you would like to say to people who are, you know, coming into their teens and they have body image problems? Where would you begin? Where would you recommend they begin?
Everybody has body image problems. That's the thing. A lot of it maybe when, I don't know, I could take it on the other end of the spectrum and say when you're older, having completely tattooed genitals makes catheters less painful. Let's be honest. I've had bladders. I've had 2 urological surgeries in the last 4 months, and yeah, I had a major bladder surgery 4 months ago, and I was real happy that even though for a few days afterwards I had this Foley catheter in me and a piss bag and everything, I was like real happy that my penis was tattooed, real happy everything seamlessly tattooed there, because here I am, you know, and we all, if we get old enough, are gonna have catheters up us. We're all gonna have all kinds of humiliating medical procedures as we get older. It just gets worse and worse, and you never understand the nightmare until you're old enough to experience the nightmare of getting old, especially if you have pre-existing medical conditions or birth defects or, you know, or accidents, and, you know, life is not set, and a lot of people just fall down. I mean, it's just so bad, and it's real nice to have a bodysuit to support you like that, because you're pretty much alone. All you have is in the hospital with this, you know, paper thin nightgown and all this other stuff, but you're tattooed all the way there, so you don't care if the nurse is watching you take a piss. You know, you don't care if you're, you know, I'm going through neurological stuff, so that's even really humiliating, because, you know, it's dealing with nerves and everything, so that gets crazy. But for younger people, be careful on the art. I can't stress how much, and you would agree, the art you pick to deal with this stuff has to be strong enough for you to survive. And if it's not appropriate, it could cause more problems.
That guy has seen these solid black arms that they're showing up now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Solidly black. At first I thought, these must be cover-ups. It's just a black tube. Have you seen them?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
blackout.
yeah.
Blackout.
And there's a few different schools of thought with that. Some of them, they go at it like as rough and rugged as possible. Some of it, there's like a little bit of cover up in there. It seems like it's almost like an act of destruction in those kids. You got other people, they're trying to have it done as perfect and meticulous as possible. And it's a look, I hate to say this, it's probably going to appear a little dated at some point. Then you've got a few artists that are incorporating very large areas of black into design work, like Hana Mantra. And I like some of his work, you know, because he's still looking at the whole body as a design and not just, well, we're going to make it black now.
I'm just gonna do it black.
Yes.
I think that was
So,
filling in.
but a lot of people are then getting white designs added over their blackout sleeves, and you know, of course, that only will give you very low contrast, even after 3 or 4 healed sessions, a very low contrast design, and it might look interesting up close. But as somebody that specializes in cover-ups, I want you to know that almost anything can be covered, but a solid black arm that's covering stuff will look like a cover-up. You'll see that texture. You'll see those old outlines. It's got that crude look to it. You know, it's not going to make your arm perfect again. So look into other alternatives. Don't resort to blackout. If you want a black arm, that's another story, but don't settle for it.
I went solid checkerboard, like red or blue with the black checkerboard. So I went like half blackout, half color over my lower back, part of my lower back, my arm stuff, all kinds of areas where to make sure the rest of the checkerboard on my body connected and flowed together. You know, I had earlier mistakes and interruptions in my work. So you know, sometimes just for cover up, I did sort of the checkerboard blackout, but I used color in the white half. But a lot of times we did 1 or 2 layers of white and then we did the color. And that's the only way we can succeed. And it was a 3 or 4 layer black too. I mean, everything was 3 or 4 layers. Yeah, I've got some places with 8 layers. I mean, I've got layers with and after 5 or 6 layers, you start getting an acne issue underneath all the layers, like the wet cardboard look, and you'll get the weirdest acne going on. It's like all these people with the black.
You really do want to wait enough time between all those passes, let your skin completely heal and you know, clear out its pores. I mean, I've had tattoos that have been worked over 5 and 6 times, but that's over a 35-year period.
Lizard
and
skin.
You don't get that problem then. But like, you know, Chris Longo, I'm sure, you know, he's got areas that have been tattooed in a short period, like 5 and 6 times, and the texture of the skin just changes after a while.
Yeah. I got lizard skin on me. I definitely got the lizard skin on a few areas, and a few areas that we did the proper time, but I just got the bad skin. And we all know about skin issues, and you know, so yeah, my skin just wasn't able to take it. So even if we did proper time, you know, with the passes and everything, it didn't matter. My skin just started getting really irritated. And when you get up to 8 layers, it was just like every once in a while you'll get the weirdest between level, like a stack of papers, acne between the layers. It's just, I mean, so a lot of times that's part of my being skeptical of the large black, because they're doing 4 and 5 layers. So I'm like, you poor bastard, you're going to get all kinds of weird acne problems.
Very possibly.
Yeah.
So Lauren, have we got any comments or questions in the chat room that we should address?
Yeah, I'm curious. We have, so Sailor George and Burt Grimm, they had their own ways of mixing the pigments, which you have acquired the knowledge of. How does that vary from what you're doing, say, today?
Well, now you can buy FDA grade pigments. You have to be careful because China has started actually bottling things in different companies' labels.
Oh.
Yeah. So you think you're buying one brand and it's actually a clone from China. So buy from your local that you know, and not that the FDA controls, they just make sure that you that these companies don't use something that's going to harm you. You know, they look at stuff, they observe it, but they don't control tattoo pigments.
Right.
Yeah. Now, when you buy it internationally, you're really gambling. Mary Jane did 3 or 4 layers of saline solution in my navel over Japanese hand tattooed counterfeit Eternal. red, and being red and counterfeit eternal, a Japanese artist hand tattooed with a counterfeit red, eternal red in my navel, and it became a chocolate chip cookie. It was lumpy and thick and disgusting. And Mary Jane did like 4 sessions, I think, of saline over that to break down the tissue, and then finally did proper red over it. And now it's like new skin and invisible. So she destroyed this insane tattoo that every time I turned, because it was in a navel, every time I moved my body, it would just irritate the hell out of me. And she got rid of the whole she got rid of all the scar tissue and recolored it right. And you can't tell the skin difference unless you're really, really looking.
Yeah, the only time I've had a really terrible, like large area pigment reaction like that, it was something I was able to resolve by going over it with just a amalgam and distilled water. Just once, and it healed back out. But man, it really came out. It was very light after that. The body did not like those pigments.
That's why those things keloid. Your body is trying to surround it like a little toothpick in your skin and get rid of it.
Yeah.
When you put something in there your body doesn't like, the reaction can be pretty bad. Hey, so Guy, is there something kind of a tattoo that you won't do?
Me? Well, gosh. My daughter is sobbing in the other room. I'm going to need to wrap this up in a few minutes.
I'd love to stay on and chat too if I'm here too.
There's definitely things that I won't do. It is obviously anything I think is distasteful, or if I think somebody is getting a tattoo that is not respectful to themselves. I've said no to many of those things. Obviously hateful tattoos, all that stuff. I've never done any of that stuff. But I really try to think about the person's happiness, and if it's a tattoo that makes sense to live with. And so I've been very slow to do, I haven't done any big face work at all yet. And I don't do large neck work on people that aren't already heavily tattooed and that kind of thing. So I'm a little traditional when it comes to those things. It's just something I kind of learned in my apprenticeship. Mostly, I just try to make sure that every tattoo is as nice as possible, and I give the person a good experience, and respect them and listen to them, because that matters as much as the pigment. Beyond that, like exactly what the tattoo is may be secondary, really, to what you give the client, how you make them feel. Those things are more important than I think a lot of us realize.
One thing I think I don't do anymore are names. I mean,
yes.
My daughter, that's one thing, but I've covered up more names than you can imagine.
Yep. I've got one of those. When I had it covered, I deliberately had the old Huck Spalding daisy over the letter cover up done so that I could remind myself not to do anything that stupid ever again. I do unfortunately have to get going. We have a veterinary appointment that we've got to leave for. I just want to make sure that we covered everything important. I've got just a couple minutes if there's any more really good chat room questions. And if it runs over, I'm sure Lauren can carry you guys.
Yeah, actually, I would love to. We spoke yesterday for quite a long time, and lots of good things were discussed. Matt,
okay, Lauren, are you willing to keep going with this? Because I actually do have to run and do this. Everyone who's listening, thank you so much, especially since I've had to step away a few times. I've been a lousy interviewer today. And I want to thank our 2 guests today. This has really been great, informative stuff, very empowering. And I can't wait to listen to the rest of the discussion later when I get the chance.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Lauren. Awesome, you guys. Yeah, so yesterday we spoke about the blue pigment, and there's several things that rabbit holes that we could go down. But Matt, tell me about your experience flying after getting your eyes tattooed and what that was like, because I thought that was super interesting.
The air pressure kept the layers separated of the ink. Because you tattoo the sclera, so it's between 2 layers, the outer and inner layer around the eyelid. It's a super, super paper thin area. but because I had ink there, it kind of acted like an airbag combined with the flying internationally, and made my whole eye swell up very badly. Mary Jane saw it, sent me to the emergency room, put steroids on it for a week. But basically, I lay down in the dark for about 3 months. Because of that, I'm not sure if I was going to go blind or not, but, you know, I had ice and I had Vaseline in my eyes. I could, you know, but it all calmed down and my body healed itself. And it was all because of the airplane, nothing to do with anybody. I tattooed my own eyes before. It wasn't a problem with the artist, it wasn't a problem with anybody except the air pressure on the airplane. And there's a big rule, I think, since 2013 when this happened. I've told every person who tattoos eyes, make sure the client does not go on an airplane, does not go scuba diving, does not screw with the air pressure, because that will keep the paper thin layer. You know, it's just like trying to put 2 pieces of saran wrap back together perfectly. It's almost impossible, and you're just making it more difficult to heal.
And
Very interesting.
Yeah, but all the interesting part for me was my eyes have 6 colors in them, little bits here and there, very, very freaky. And you know, there's gold around the corneas that like the sun, with all the colors, and there's spots all over the place. But the old ink that I did in my own eyes 3 years before mixed, it was still wet, and it mixed with the new ink, and flying on the airplane made the mix extra unique. So I have a weird effect that can only be done by almost going blind.
Wow, very interesting. And so then you, Mary Jane, yesterday you said about flying in general, which you know, a lot of people do fly, and international travel is so common, even for a tattoo, but you recommended waiting a week, you said.
Especially if it's a lower leg tattoo, it's the change of hydraulic pressure in the airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
They just blow up. Once you get the swelling in, there's no easy way to, as Matt just said, to get it even out of an eye. So it's, I don't like to have people fly in, get tattooed, and fly home. I won't do it. It's just a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I fly back internationally from a convention, even with a small 1-inch square piece, it just pulses the entire time. And it's weird. I mean, and with heavy leg tattoos, even on normal land, you sleep, all the blood settles in one place, then you wake up, and it all, because I've had like ankle to hip giant tattoos done, and you get up and you fall right back down, because there's the blood pressure and the pulsing of, you know, of your leg, you can't even walk. So yeah, a lot of people with full leg tattoos done very quickly talk about not being able to walk for a day or 2.
Yeah, that definitely, yeah, that makes sense for sure. So yeah, we talked about a lot about international travel and plans coming up, you know, speculating on Amsterdam, whether or not that'll happen, but it's pretty cool to think about. I've just never been so cautious getting tattooed before traveling myself.
Yes, I think Amsterdam still will happen. Unfortunately, I can't go. I'll be healing from surgery, so I won't be there this year. I will be there next year. I'll be at a lot more shows next year. I'm booked 2 years in advance. I'll be around like 8 countries a year. It looks like for the next, I don't know, foreseeable future. It'll be just more difficult. It used to be more difficult with facial tattoos 10 years ago. Now a lot more people have facial tattoos, so it's not so much difficult anymore, especially through LAX. They don't care anymore. So yeah.
Seen everything.
But internationally, like looking like this and flying through China, that was one thing. You know, I was watched very carefully, and I work in a thong, so when I dropped to the thong to take pictures with people at a show in China, I had 9 cops with their cameras to you know, headquarters, all screaming about me, and they assigned a guard to watch me the entire show. I had several guards watching me everywhere, even in the bathroom, and yeah, I was observed very closely, and they knew right to the second and reported when I was leaving the country. But they didn't harass me, and they were very nice. I mean, same thing I've had in Mexico and a few other countries. I've been in 34 countries, so probably in 5 different countries, a lot of them in South America. They all see me coming in and they watch me very closely. You know, they see me in the media for tattoos and other stuff, and with the face stuff, you can't really get away with doing anything. So, yeah.
And this isn't the year to necessarily travel out to Europe because there's a 14-day quarantine for any Americans entering the United States from Europe. So as soon as you fly in, you got to check into a hotel for 14 days.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like something I would like to do.
No. And you have to have, I think, 3 different COVID tests, one from the hotel, one in the airport before you get on the plane, one right after you get off the plane. You know, and it's not worth it. You know?
Yeah. It would interfere with other medical treatment if you have pre-existing issues.
Yeah, this isn't my year to travel. We were going to, but we're going to take motorcycle trips.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time for sure. And traveling internationally, I haven't done myself, so I'd be quite interested to do that. I wanted to ask too, Mary Jane, are there any like special keepsakes that you have maybe from the 80s or anything that you still keep in your station or in your environment close to you that, you know, that like a totem from, you know, when you first started compared to now?
Oh, I'm sure I have several. I'm looking up on my wall right now, and I have a Stanley Moskowitz, Ed Hardy, and Lyle Tuttle, and some of their acetates right there. I think I can get that down and show you.
That would be really cool. I'd be super interested.
All right. So on the top, that Ed, the Moskowitz brothers, and Lyle Tuttle when he was a youngster, 2 stencils.
Oh my God.
Philadelphia Eddie Funk and the Moskowitz.
Wow.
So I try to keep things like this. I think it's really, you need them. I mean, they hand carved this stencil. You know, this is back in the old days. So the answer to that is I keep a lot of stuff. Yeah. And I don't know if I told you this story, but when I went to Bert Grimm's funeral, he was 85. He lived out at the coast. And when I went to his funeral, there was a woman there with a fresh tattoo. And it was obviously Bert Grimm's work. You know, he worked off. And I said, when did you get that? And she said, yesterday. And then, so he put this tattoo on her, went to bed and died. That's the way you want to go out. He was 85. You know, and he thought he would, he always worried about what he'd do with his wife, but his wife predeceased him. So he'd get up and he'd call me and he said, I'm looking out the window and the clock says 5. Is it 5 in the morning or 5 at night? You know, he kind of just got lost out there for time. Didn't know what to do. He'd had a wife for 60 years and didn't know what to do when he was by himself.
Yeah, that's a super interesting, sad story, but yet like with that type of history, it's just, it's so great to know that you've done so much and made such an impact with just being one person, to have lived that and experienced that. That's why I find it so interesting to see the different ways that you've kept those traditions alive.
And so I have 3 tattoo rooms. I have a waiting room, a tattooing room, and a library. And I'm trying to decide what to do with all the books and all the stuff. What do you do with all the stuff? You know, do you give it away to other tattooers? I mean, most people get their imagery on the web now. You know, they don't buy an Art Nouveau book. So I'm dealing with how to get rid of stuff now too. And I'm not sure, I'll put the feelers out and see if people want to just come into the library and look at some of these books. But I don't foresee keeping all of this stuff going. I want to keep my tattoo shop, but they've changed the rules one-on-one. I really don't need those 3 rooms. And I really don't do my research in those books anymore. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's interesting how times change, what you decide you want to hang on to and what you decide you're going to let go of.
Yep. And, you know, value does have its place. You know, everybody can say, I would love to come and check out a book, and you could make, you know, a lot of people very, very happy rather than, you know, running out of space. But yeah, that's the books and stuff, and what you just showed us is very interesting. Matt, can I ask you the same thing? Do you keep any like, because I don't know if I mentioned before, but I remember seeing you when I was just a kid, and I'm curious any like totems that you've kept along the way that you keep with yourself regularly or you travel with or anything like that. I can't hear you, Matt. Nope. Nope.
This working?
But yeah. Yep.
Okay. Okay. New headset. All right. I get I get them tattooed on. I have a flag from done in every country that I've been to. So I have 34 flags on my leg, one done in each country. I have most of them are tattooed on. I have most of my stuff from shows are in storage. I don't really collect that much. I have a few random things here and there, but nothing really physically. I live in a tiny house and I have very little space.
Well, tattoos are the perfect answer. Yeah. I would have to say myself.
Well, I have 160 souvenirs from 160 artists. Mm-hmm. So I have both a bodysuit done by 6 artists and traveling the world and in my life souvenirs from another 160. So.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, if anyone else would like to add any comments in our chat, we're probably going to be wrapping up. Oh, this is awesome.
This is Paul Rogers. He lived in a trailer in Jacksonville, Florida, and he built most of my tattoo machines. Check him out, Paul Rogers. Spalding and Rogers, this is the Rogers guy. Mm-hmm. Very first supplier. He was the greatest guy in the world. I spent an afternoon down there in 95-degree heat while he was working on a machine for me. And then this is our most famous lady in Portland, Elizabeth Weinzierl. She got most of her tattoos when her husband, who was the state medical examiner, would go to St. Louis for the AMA convention. Burt Grimm would tattoo her. And so she lived in Portland too. She was an exhibitionist and she couldn't get her clothes off fast enough. When she came to my niece's show at the art museum, my parents were just horrified and embarrassed because my canvases were human, standing there with tattoos instead of being hung on a wall like a painting. And they were really kind of embarrassed by the whole thing. And then they saw this cute little granny and she seemed okay. And then my mother made the big mistake of asking her where the bathroom was in the museum. And as soon as I saw my mom and Elizabeth Weinzierl go into the bathroom, I knew what was going to happen. And as soon as she got in there, she got buck naked. And my mom, I had to kind of just lead her home after that. Just a complete exhibitionist. I never. Anyway.
Matt is, I would say, down to a thong. He'd be competing with her, right?
Yeah, me and Guy both met Elizabeth at the 1989 National Convention in Arlington, Texas. She was there. So we all met her. I've met her at several conventions. Very nice lady. I have met her a few times at a few shows. So I don't know what to say. I don't mind the exhibition part. It's weird. I do have a high majority of my audience is female. So I get a lot of female convention organizers wanting to hire male eye candy instead of female eye candy. And they like mine. I'm kind of small and harmless. I have the medical issues and all that stuff. So well, they think I'm harmless and it gets weird. And I like 65% of my photos are with females, kind of taking, a lot of them are taking rather like funny pictures, sticking out their tongues and stupid stuff. I have my tongue tattooed, so like my trademark is sticking out my blue tongue. So in most of the pictures and most of the media of me has me with the tattooed eyes and sticking out my blue tongue. So it gets weird.
And your lip, yeah.
Yeah. But the tongue too is the weird one. I mean, the entire tongue, all the way to the inside of the body. Don't get it, it could kill you. I am the primary I modernized modern tongue tattoos. 10 years ago, I put on a whole bunch of videos of me tattooing my own tongue on YouTube. And anybody who's ever gotten into tongue tattooing, there's very few people who do it on a planet. Suddenly in the last year, a few more people have gotten it, but they only get the front part done. The farther you go back, the more it swells and you risk death. So don't tattoo your tongue. It might swell, you might die. It's not worth dying for. This is more dangerous than eye tattoos. And I tattooed my own eyes originally. I just had a few more colors added in. And then, you know, when I'm playing 4 hours later, which is not a good move, you know, and no scuba diving either. But, you know, I was only on land the first time I tattooed my own eye. That got me on CNN in 2010. So man tattoos his own eyeballs. So that got weird. So yeah, I've gotten some really weird publicity
Trying to think of,
from all
yeah.
this. Oh,
Back to
they've
the-
had me naked on newspapers in France a couple of times. And they even showed frontal nudity on one. It was weird.
That's, yeah, that's,
Yeah, well, partial frontal. They didn't, you know. Yeah, I was like, oh, you didn't have to show that section, but okay. But weird. But I've been in 2 international museum exhibits, and they just pay me to be living art, and I just run around in a thong. And the people are at the museum exhibit. It's a tattoo museum exhibit, and I'm the living tattoo exhibit for the show. So I did that in Italy for Marco Leone. Great show. And I've done that in Portland, Oregon a couple of times, and I think in another country somewhere. So it gets pretty interesting.
to say the least. I'm sure we could talk forever about just that. Yeah. So everybody, I want to thank you for watching. Again, we have Mary Jane and Matt's contact information. Feel free to reach out, because you know this is important, life-changing decisions that you can actually help people with, along with, you know, being yourself and expressing yourself and doing it like to the full capacity. So I think Mary Jane, you said it very well. You're a seeker. So anyone watching, that's something to keep in your mind. Be a seeker. Keep doing it. The trade is constantly evolving. So, I mean, I'm happy to be here with everybody who's been a part of it and paved the way as well. So
Meeting you too.
very much. So thank you very much.
Thank you.